Part 34. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Which John Word. Chapter 331. Chapter 331 The Arrogant Old Man. Lee Ji-eun-hong not only hangs around the company, but also hangs out in front of Lee Baiken, his eldest son. Wander over, wander over. Although Lee Baiken is very satisfied with the fact that he only has one sweater. But Lee Baiken couldn't bear the old man's constant wandering. He finally put down the document in his hand. "Dad, if you have nothing to do, please don't hang around in front of me. This will affect my handling of the company's affairs." "What, now my old bones are no longer qualified to hang around here?" Lee Ji-eun-hong snorted coldly when he said this. "Bad boy, don't forget, the seat you are sitting on used to be mine. Don't forget that there is a saying that when you are old, you are still hot. If you want, I will pull you down from this position in a minute." Lee Baiken. Lee Ji-eun-hong, who was tired from wandering around, sat on the sofa. "Look at how skillful my daughter-in-law is with her hands. How close-fitting and warm these clothes are. They are much better than the customized high-end clothes outside." At this point, then he glared at Lee Baiken fiercely. "But for such a good girl, someone doesn't cherish her and can't see her goodness." Lee Baiken felt even more depressed when the old man saw him like this. He is just a little slower than the old man, just a little bit. "Lee Ji-eun-hong, I have so many things, but you only have one. If I guessed correctly, then you should have taken advantage of me. You have taken advantage of me and you are so rude to me. I will definitely give it to you later. Tell Sunian that she won't make it for you next time. After all, it's better to make one more piece for me instead of making clothes for a wolf-hearted person." Hearing this, Lee Baiken finally couldn't help but said, "I used to admit that I was a bastard, but now I have begun to change. Now I am really living a serious life with Sunian." "If you have really changed, why are you still separated from Nian now?" These words immediately blocked Lee Baiken's defense. When Lee Ji-eun-hong saw Lee Baiken like this, he felt that he had hit the key point. "You think I don't know what you are thinking? Let me tell you, whether you are sincerely living with Nian or pretending, then you have to tell me sincerely. If you treat Nian badly, even if you are my son, I will definitely stand on Nian's side and make sure that you, a brat, can't get enough of you." Lee Baiken was speechless. This question of separation, does he want to separate? If you are with Sunian, then you are like a sheep in a tiger's mouth. But seeing the old man like this, he felt that separation was not a solution. "When I think of this," Lee Baiken subconsciously typed a sentence in the computer search box. "If a man wants a child after having a sterilization, can he still have one? Bao, Dad, you can't be so cruel. How about I promise not to compete with you for favor after I come out?" When he saw the search results, Lee Baiken raised his eyebrows slightly. This method seems to work. After talking a lot, Lee Ji-eun-hong turned around and saw his son wandering around with no intention of listening. He was completely furious. Then he walked up to Lee Baiken and slapped the table hard. "Have you ever heard anything? Listen to me." Lee Baiken closed the computer page. "Don't be so angry. Don't forget that your age is here. Being so angry is not good for your health." Lee Ji-eun-hong. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Which John Word. Chapter 332. Chapter 332 The old man has a good plan. Doesn't Lee Baiken have a wall ladder? Lee Ji-eun-hong left when he saw that his brat was so out of touch. If he feels like he can stay like this, then you might get off. So Lee Ji-eun-hong went to find his precious daughter-in-law Sunian. He also brought gifts to his precious daughter-in-law, and Sunian had already made so many sweaters for him. As a father, he had to do something. But when Sunian saw the gift, he couldn't say a word. and came to Li Baikan with a troubled face. Just as Li Baikan had taken care of things, he saw her coming and wanted to ask her what she wanted to eat tonight. But before he could say anything, he was choked. Because he heard Sunian's thoughts. The old man gave me the medicine that can make Li Baikan helpless. Should I use it? Li Baikan, what is a drug that can be taken without a fight? What did the old man do again? Old man, as the best father-in-law in the world, of course he can help my precious wife realize her dream, he. The old man told me that I need to take good measures when using this medicine. Does this mean that using this medicine will affect Li Baikan's seeds? If it affects the seeds, what should I do if it affects Mo Bao's health? But if you use this medicine for the first time, then there will be a second time, so you have more chances to get the seeds. But as for Li Baikan's thoughts on Lanmin, if he used tricks the first time, what if he didn't give me life or death the second time? Don't even show up to me, then that's it? Li Baikan listened to Sunian's research on whether he should administer the medicine and how to administer the medicine. The more he listened, the more black lines appeared on Li Baikan's forehead. He felt that the sterilization operation needed to be arranged as soon as possible. When Sunian came to his senses, he also noticed Li Baikan's expression, and immediately asked, "Baikan, why is your face so ugly? Are you feeling unwell? The old man came here just now and said something, but you don't have to worry." In order to prevent Sunian from thinking about those messy things, Li Baikan deliberately sighed deeply after saying this. "What did Dad say?" Li Baikan hugged Sunian and said, "Dad told us about the issue of room sharing." Sunian's eyes suddenly lit up. Opportunity is here. So good. But Li Baikan said in her ear, "I also want to solve this problem, but you are taking medicine. I'm afraid that if we end the room separation, then I will not be able to restrain myself. So you take care of your body these days. Wouldn't the medicine be in vain? You know it's so difficult for you to drink the medicine. It would be a pity if it was really in vain. The old man has a good plan. Doesn't Li Baikan have a wall ladder? Medicine, what kind of medicine is this? Ah, this medicine is so bad. Why do you need to abstain from sexual intercourse? No, I haven't even felt good about it. What is abstinence? It's obviously about annihilating desire. How long do I have to drink this medicine? Sunian asked without giving up. You need to take care of your body. Your health is a bit bad now. The old doctor said that your kidney fire is heavy, which makes you weak and has various problems. You have to take care of it slowly. After saying this, Li Baikan's expression he also became serious, so you can't stay up late anymore, and you won't be able to take care of your body. After speaking, he flicked Sunian on the forehead. Although Sunian was depressed, he still agreed. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 333. Chapter 333 Lanmin, I just want to meet you once. Because Li won a city landmark design project. The entire Li group seems to be in a Chinese New Year atmosphere. Especially when the notice came out that all employees' wages would be doubled this month. Everyone admires Sunian, the CEO's wife. Compared with the Li family, the Huo family group is shrouded in dark clouds. After all, in order to win this plan, the company has to make a lot of preparations and transfer a lot of elites, which will definitely delay a lot of things. The key is this mistake. Everyone with a discerning eye knows that this is the mistake of the upper class. After all, Lanmin was involved from the beginning, and then the plan was temporarily changed. This was all the fault of a certain person who made the decision. It is also for this reason that the entire Huo family is shrouded in a strange atmosphere. Although no one dared to accuse Huo Linyuan directly, the atmosphere here still made Huo Linyuan feel unhappy. These days, Huo Linyuan keeps losing his temper. This made Lan Min feel pain in his eyes and heart. How could she see her beloved in such pain? Lan Zhen felt that she had to do something. So Lan Min appeared in front of Sunian. When Lan Min appeared, Sunian Zheng and Sun Ying'er were soaking in a hot spring in the suburbs, discussing matters about the contestants. When Lan Min appeared, Sunian leaned against Sun Ying'er's ear. "I bet, this guy must have come to beg me to let me give up this project to Huo Linyuan." Sun Ying'er was drinking juice when she heard this, which caused her to choke. The waiter standing nearby thoughtfully wiped her mouth with a towel. Sunian originally wanted to tease Lan Min, but Lan Zhi's words aroused her anger. "Sunian, can you see that Baikan once loved me and let me meet Baikan? This time I really have something very important to see Baikan. Really, I swear it's really important. If you let me see Baikan, then you can let me do anything, even if this is the last time I see Baikan in my life, I will be willing to do so." When saying this, Lan Min's eyes changed. That's called tearful eyes. But Sunian's fist tightened. The similar words that Lan Min said in his previous life also appeared in his mind. "Sunian, can you help me for the sake of Baikan who loved me the most during his lifetime, so that Baikan can rest in peace?" "Heh, it's really a great love." Sunian stood up from the hot spring, picked up the bath towel and put it on her body. "I answer you for the sake of the woman Baikan loves now, and let me dream about your spring and autumn dreams." Sun Ying'er next to her felt incredible that this Lan person could actually say such a thing. Sunian Lan Min knelt down directly on the ground. "I just want to see you once. If you want to see me, you shouldn't come here to beg me." Sunian pointed to the marble in the distance. "You don't have to say that Li Baikan can't see you now. You have tried many ways to see you, but it's nonsense. If you really want to see you, then show sincerity, for example, kill yourself to death. Li Baikan cares about you so much and will definitely see you. When the time comes, even if you want the stars in the sky, Li Baikan will give them to you." "Sunian, although you have won now, you can't say such sarcastic words." Even though Lan Min had decided to swallow his anger before coming, Sunian's behavior made it impossible for Lan Min to endure it. After Lan Min said this, Sunian immediately went over and kicked the person to the ground, and dragged her towards the marble. "Sunian, what do you want to do? What do you want to do?" End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 334. Chapter 334, Making Up for the Regrets of the Previous Life. Even in her previous life, her calligraphy skills killed the male and female protagonists. But she was also old at that time, and she also wanted to pay attention to the face of her elders, so she did not go to the heroine personally to settle the score. Now it can just make up for her regrets in her previous life, and it can be regarded as her rebirth value. "I want to do whatever I want, of course I can do whatever I want." After saying that, he slammed Lan Min's head against the marble. "You go to see that guy Li Baikan, don't you just ask him to give you the bid this time? Are you going to give this project to Huo Linyuan? Haha, who are you? Give it to Huo Linyuan, the person you once loved." With just a few words, do you want Li Baikan to give up a project worth tens of billions to his opponent? Are you his ancestor? One or two strokes, and soon Lan Min's forehead was bleeding. Sunian didn't mean to calm down, but became more and more crazy. "Let me guess what you want to say, that is Huo Linyuan, that is the hard work of many people. Haha, your hard work is just hard work, and our hard work is like pig's blood. Except for you Lan, are we not human? If I kill you now, you will become a cinnabar mole in Li Baikan's heart, let alone a project." In such a situation, Lan Min had no possibility of counterattack. When Li Baikan arrived, he saw Sunian sitting with lifeless eyes, and next to her, Lan Min's face was covered in blood. Sunian looked at Li Baikan, who was coming in a hurry. Seeing him with a livid face, the tears couldn't help but flow down. Although Sunian knew very well that Li Baikan was the heroine's big licker, she still couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. That kind of discomfort is like being out of breath. Li Baikan walked up to her with Sunian's eyes. Sunian raised his head slightly. No matter how Li Baikan behaved, it was worth it for her to torture the heroine like this. Why are you wearing so little? Now you are taking medicine, but you still dislike the medicine every day, and you still don't pay attention to your health. I think you just don't take enough medicine. Li Baikan took off his suit jacket and wrapped himself up. Hugged Sunian tightly. What is going on, and why is Sunian like this? When he saw Sunian like this, he was even a little dazed. It's because Sunian looks like a rag doll. Obviously she was still alive and kicking when she left him. Why is it like this now? You don't blame me, Sunian asked angrily at this time. It was okay if Sunian didn't say this. After saying this, Li Baikan realized that the culprit was Lan Zhen. Didn't you get enough of the lesson Lan Zhen gave you last time? Well, let's continue this time. Lan Min seemed to see hope when she saw Li Baikan coming, but Li Baikan walked towards Sunian step by step without looking at her at all, which gradually made her despair. Why are you doing this to me, Baikan? You clearly said you would love me forever, and you clearly said I can do whatever I want. Why did you change your mind? What kind of ecstasy did this woman fill you with? Li Baikan also gradually began to calm down. Haha, I love you. What do you have that deserves my love? The only advantage you have is that you can see your face. If I destroy your face, then did you just watch it? After saying this, Josu immediately led people behind Lan Min. Li Baikan lowered his head at this time, looked at the woman in his arms warmly and said, "The hole you made on her head is very beautiful and artistic. If that's the case, then I will let the hole stay in her forever. Can you put it on your forehead?" After saying this, he kissed her cheek. Like a believer kissing a god. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Which John Word. Chapter 335. Chapter 335. The two of them closed their eyes at the same time. After confirming from the doctor that Sunian was fine, Li Baikan felt relieved. How about I ask Josu to choose a female bodyguard for you later? Next time something like this happens, you can ask the bodyguard to come, Li Baikan said and kissed Sunian on the face. This is also it's my fault, I didn't think of this last time, and I scared you like this time. Even though Li Baikan's voice was so gentle that it could bring tears to his eyes, Sunian's eyes were still dull and soulless. This made Li Baikan feel relieved again. What's wrong, Sunian? Tell me, can you say something to me? What can you say to make you feel comfortable? All you have to do is say, then it can be done. Don't do this, don't make me afraid. The man's voice was a little choked. Sunian finally spoke, why aren't you angry? These words made Li Baikan stunned. But he understood what Sunian meant. Li Baikan held Sunian's hand and gently kissed the back of her hand. Why do you think I'm not angry? I'm obviously very angry. You just left me for such a short time and you ended up like this. I'm so angry that I want to beat you up immediately. You know that's not what I meant, Sunian interrupted him. Sunian's face was pale at this moment, without any blood, but his eyes were fixed on Li Baikan. Then what do you want me to say? Is it because that woman Lan Min is yelling at you? I said that the person in my heart is you, and I am doing what I should do now if I weren't afraid of killing Lan Min. If something happened to the so-called heroine, then he really killed that woman on the spot. It seems that as long as this woman exists, she will always be in trouble. Just like now. Sunian kept looking at him. But he couldn't hear any thoughts. This is what scares Li Baikan the most. Sunian withdrew his hand and turned his back to him. Lee Baiken was silent for a moment, and then lay down next to her. The two of them were speechless. At the same time he closed his eyes. The moment he closed his eyes, Lee Baiken came to the dreamland. This made Lee Baiken a little annoyed. Why did he fall asleep so quickly today? It is obvious that this is the most uncomfortable time for Sunian, and he has obviously planned to keep her company all night. Baiken cared so much about Lanmin before he was alive, and you are so ruthless towards Lanmin now. Aren't you afraid that Baiken will come to you at night? Yes, even if the child in your belly belongs to Baiken, everyone knows that you used shady means to get this child. You are able to sit in this position now because you have benefited from Baiken. Now you can't. Even if you don't care about Baiken's last wish, how can you be qualified to sit in this position? Hearing these voices, Lee Baiken's heart suddenly tightened. He looked in the direction of the sound. I didn't expect to see those old guys surrounding Sunian again. And there was Lanmin beside him. When he saw Lanmin, Lee Baiken immediately became angry. Why is this woman here, and what does this woman want to do to Sunian? Then when he saw Sunian, he suddenly didn't know what to say. Because at this moment he saw Sunian with a big belly, but her face was pale. Looking like this, he looks like a zombie. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 336. Chapter 336, Who would be happy to be played by Fate for the second time? When Huo got this project, they put so much pressure on our company. Now that there are problems with the project, they should be responsible for the problems themselves. Why should our company be responsible for it? Sunian stood up and held onto the desk. Lanmin immediately said, I know, but you can't see me helping Huo out of face. Even if you see that I am Baiken's favorite woman during his lifetime, just this time, as long as you help me solve this problem, then Baiken will definitely feel at ease under Jiquan. As Lee Baiken in Lanmin's mouth, he really wants to vomit now. This woman is young enough to say such a thing. But at this moment, Lee Baiken suddenly had an idea. If his guess is correct, it should be that Huo Linyuan got this project in his previous life and followed Fang Yulan's design, but failed in the end. Then Lanmin came to Sunian, hoping that Sunian could pay for her actions. The old guys on the board of directors must be hoping to take advantage of this opportunity to get Sunian's fetus. Then one corpse and two lives. Aware of this, Lee Baiken felt really cold all over his body. Immediately, he hurried to Sunian's side. Looking at her, biting her lip tightly. Sunian, if Baiken lives in this world, he will definitely not ignore me. The directors followed soon after. Under such circumstances, Sunian could only agree. Then Lee Baiken looked at Sunian's bulging belly, and then looked at various documents, looking for a way to find them. During this period, the guys on the board of directors also threatened Sunian by saying, if you can't handle such a small thing, how can you take the position of President Lee? You must know that Sunian is now 7 months pregnant, and her movements are very inconvenient, but she still has to pay for Lanmin's fault. Finally Sunian collapsed and pushed all the documents to the ground. What kind of heroine? What a heroine! If she is so majestic, why should I be responsible for it? But after Sunian vented his anger, he could only pick up the documents one by one. No wonder Sunian was so out of control on this matter. No wonder she seemed to have lost her soul. If his guess was correct, Sunian should have thought of these things. After Sunian collapsed from exhaustion, she lay down directly on the desk and fell asleep. He saw the tiredness on her brows, and he couldn't help but want to laugh. The reason why he wanted to laugh was because he remembered the days when he was bound by the so-called plot. Compared with Sunian, his anger and complaints seemed to have become a joke. He was just controlled by the plot and did some stupid things. But what about her? After her rebirth, she lived so happily, and she was hiding the pain in her heart with a smile. Who would be happy to be played by fate for the second time? These are things that he had never thought of before. Now Li Baikan really feels that he is so hateful and has no qualifications to love her at all. Li Baikan wanted to do something. At this time, he remembered that he seemed to be able to touch things when he dreamed last time. After realizing this, Li Baikan bent down to pick up the documents Sunian dropped on the ground. I didn't expect that I could actually pick it up. Then Li Baikan picked up all the documents that Sunian had not had time to pick up. Although Li Baikan also knew that what he was doing now was just a drop in the bucket. But he can only do a little bit. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Which John Word. Chapter 337. Chapter 337, Eat it all over the world with one move. When he woke up, Li Baikan quickly looked at Sunian next to him. As a result, I saw her face full of tears. Could it be that she also dreamed about what happened in her previous life? Li Baikan carefully held the person in his arms. No, those things will never happen in this life. He will not let that happen, absolutely not. At this time, Sunian also opened his eyes. It was all a dream, just a dream. Don't think too much. No matter how terrible the nightmare is, it is just a nightmare. If you continue to think about it, you will only be disturbed by dreams. Li Baikan was like coaxing a child. He coaxed Sunian in the same way. Sunian's eyes also began to regain clarity. The persecution in her dream seemed to be gradually dissipating. Yeah, those things happened in my last life. Not only did I torture landmen into that state now, but I can also deal with Huo Linyuan unscrupulously. Everything is different from the previous life. In this life, I will never be the same as in the last life, paying for Lan Ren. I can still make Huo Linyuan completely unable to hold his head up in this world. After all, Mo Bao was able to kill this so-called male and female protagonist in his previous life. I can do it too, and I still have experience. When Li Baikan heard these thoughts, his heart was not completely relieved. The reason for this was because Sunian's hand was still holding the corner of his clothes tightly. By the way, that Sun Ying'er is still waiting for you to give her some advice. Do you want her to wait in vain? Li Baikan talked a lot, just like coaxing a child. Let Sunian's heart gradually warm up. Sunian nestled in Li Baikan's arms. Originally, I was thinking that I would take action after the plot was over. It seems that the aura of the heroine Lan Min is not very strong in this life. Li Baikan became energetic when he heard this. Does Sunian have any solution? By the way, Sunian once said that their son successfully dealt with the so-called male and female protagonists in his previous life. So she must know the way. After thinking about this matter, Li Baikan couldn't help but hold his breath. Then I heard Sunian's voice. So what if Lan Min and Huo Linyuan are indeed the male and female protagonists, but once the plot of this book is over, they will be easier to deal with? This made Li Baikan's eyes suddenly light up. Yes, if they are in the book now. Once the plot of the book is over, there is no plot. Like all fairy tales, the book only writes that the prince and princess lived a happy life from then on, but it never details how happy the so-called prince and princess lived. Even make a bold guess. Even if the prince and princess don't live a happy life after getting married, no one will know. When he thought of this, Li Baikan saw hope. He placed a shallow kiss on Sunian's face again, and then continued to coax Sunian, "You are the smartest, you should understand such a simple truth, and I hope you can understand. After all, if we have children in the future, then I will use this trick to coax the children, and the children will definitely not believe it, so what should I do? These words finally made Sunian couldn't help laughing. This guy is real. Does he really want to succeed all over the world with one trick? If it doesn't work, can't he try another one? End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 338. Chapter 338 Lu Jing redefines loyal dogs. Li Baikan, what on earth do you want to do? How could you ruin Lan Min's face? Not only that, you also sent people to stop Huo Linyuan from taking her to seek medical treatment. Do you know the consequences of doing this? You know, for a woman, what does appearance mean? Lu Jing ran to Li Baikan angrily and asked. If Lu Jing hasn't realized that this Li Baikan is no longer the Li Baikan who loves Lan Min, then he is a fool. In all these recent events, he has become Li Baikan's pawn. Injury to Ian's chess piece. When he thought about this, Lu Jing really felt like a fool for not discovering it. Li Baikan could tell from Lu Jing's reaction that what he was doing was effective. Why are you doing this? Is it because Lan Min doesn't choose you? You are also a man after all. Why are you so selfish? Lan Min doesn't choose you, so you do this to Lan Min and your own beloved. You are really disgusting. Lu Jingzhe really wanted to beat Li Baikan up, but why couldn't he beat this guy? I told that woman that I didn't love her anymore, but it's a pity that she didn't believe it, and neither did you. Li Baikan looked at Lu Jing. He has not yet learned from Sunian how long it will take for this plot to end. I don't know how long it took for him to die in his previous life. So Lu Jing was still a chess piece in his hand, and it was for this reason that he was able to let this guy appear in front of him. These words made Lu Jing stunned. At this moment, Lu Jing remembered that Li Baikan had indeed said something similar. Now my beloved is called Sunian. If she disturbs my beloved, then I must make her pay the price. Lu Jing, I can make Lan Min appear again and again. It is because of my past friendship. But it was wasted by her. If this is the case, then she must bear the price. Even if Li Baikan said such words, he felt disgusted and disgusted. Lu Jing didn't know what to say at this time. How can you be so heartless as a man? What is the past relationship? How can that Sunian be compared to Lan Min? What are you doing? Li Baikan. What is this Lu Jing doing? Is he persuading Li Baikan to continue being Lan Min's licking dog? Can you still play like this? This novel is really refreshing my outlook on life. No, Lu Jing can really redefine the name of a loyal dog. If you do this, then you and I will be enemies from now on. We are incompatible with each other. If you cause such harm to me, I will definitely pay it back to you. If you want to get Lan Min, then I can help you. How can you help me? Lu Jing said subconsciously. But after Lu Jing said this, he wanted to slap himself. After all, Li Baikan treats Lan Min like this. How could this guy have any good ideas? How could he cooperate with someone who hurt Lan Min? What would he become? And he answered so quickly. Really drunk. Let's continue to cooperate. You just need to make sure that woman Lan Min doesn't disturb my life in the future. Of course Li Baikan understood what Lu Jing was thinking. You can also cooperate with Huo Linyuan because of this matter, so you can only looking at that woman Lan Min and Huo Linyuan loving each other. Of course, you can also help her take care of the children. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 339. Chapter 339 If you attack me personally, you attack me personally. How can you attack my IQ? Sunian was shocked by what Li Baikan said. Sunian had just finished strolling in the garden and was planning to go back to his room, when Lu Jing came to see Li Baikan in a menacing manner. She hesitated for a moment and then followed. I saw this great show without expecting it. Even she couldn't help but start to imagine that the male and female protagonists were loving each other, and the male partner Lu Jing looked like a nanny to take care of their children. It's really as funny as you want. When he thought of this, Sunian subconsciously wanted to laugh. Fortunately, Sunian covered her mouth in time to prevent the sound from coming out in time, otherwise it would be embarrassing. When Li Baikan said this, Lu Jing was so excited that he almost jumped up. What does it mean to take care of a child? Please explain it clearly, Li Baikan. You can insult people, but you can't insult people like this. I don't feel insulted, am I right? If that woman gives birth to a child, if something happens and she can't take care of the child, can you bear to watch her feel uncomfortable? She will definitely take care of the child, and maybe her child will be able to recognize you as her godfather. Woolen cloth. Although Lu Jing has already recognized it, decided to guard Lan Min silently. But now that he heard Li Baikan's words, he really couldn't keep silent. Anyway, I don't care. Even if you join forces with Huo Linyuan to deal with me, I won't be afraid, and there will be no loss. Li Baikan stood up after saying this. Okay, if you have nothing to do, you can leave. I'm going to spend time with my wife. Such an attitude really made Lu Jing uncomfortable. I can't beat him if I bully him. He has applied to become a taekwondo master in 30 days. As long as he succeeds, he will definitely beat these two guys, Li Baikan and Huo Linyuan, to screams. Author, ahem, although it's not very polite, but Mr. Lu, are you sure you haven't been deceived? Can taekwondo be learned quickly in 30 days? Lu Jing, get out of here. At the same time, Lu Jing also knew very well that he was a bit incomparable to Li Baikan and Huo Linyuan in many aspects. If this is the case, then why not let the snipe and the clam compete with each other and the fisherman get the benefit? Then you must agree to a condition. Li Baikan gestured to him and said. You can't hurt Jier. You can't hurt Jier even a hair. If you do, no matter what the price I pay, I will make your life worse than death. When Lu Jing said this, his eyes were filled with anger. Even like a wolf that can pounce on its prey at any time. Then come now. After Li Baikan said that, he opened his hands and said, come on, hurry up and make my life worse than death. Lu Jing. Lu Jing swallowed silently. Li Baikan, do you need to be so serious? Otherwise, Lan Zhen comes to disgust me and my wife, and I still have to stay well? Lu Jing, you have to know that you need my cooperation now, not that I need you. If you can't even do this, if it is clear, then I think there is no need for us to cooperate. I even think that if I cooperate with you for a long time, I may be infected with low IQ from you. Lu Jing was completely angry at this moment. If you attack me personally, you attack me personally. How can you attack my IQ? Li Baikan didn't speak this time, but looked deeply at Lu Jing. Just such a simple glance made Lu Jing feel even more angry. What does Li Baikan's look mean? Why does it feel like he is looking at a fool? One day, he will take revenge. End of this chapter. The vicious female supporting character's character collapsed after her voice was eavesdropped. Author, R.O. Wich Jong Word. Chapter 340. Chapter 340. Li Baikan said the wrong thing again. Because Lu Jing's expression is so wonderful. As a result, Li Baikan, who had a dark look on his face, walked up to her without noticing. The reason why Li Baikan has black lines all over his face. It's because Sunian is getting more and more outrageous. I suddenly found that these two guys have a good sense of CP. Ha ha ha, licking dog CP, although Li Baikan may not lick anymore, but it is right to call it this for the time being. What CP? Although Li Baikan didn't know what these two letters meant specifically. But judging from the snickering expression of the little woman in front of him, it didn't mean anything good. Sunian felt inexplicably cold at this moment. When Sunian raised his head and saw black lines all over his head, Lee Baikin took a few steps back with a guilty conscience. Sunian. I don't know why, but she felt a little guilty when Lee Baikin called her that. But after this idea appeared, Sunian couldn't help but want to spit on himself. Why feel guilty? I haven't done anything to feel guilty about. There is nothing to feel guilty about. Baikin, what are you doing? Sunian smiled and went to hug Lee Baikin. Nothing, just entertaining someone. Sunian. This is a really good description. When entertaining someone, it's like if he didn't say so, I would have thought that the person he was entertaining was not a person. Lee Baikin smiled and hugged back. Just at this time, Lu Jing also came out of the study. When he saw their disgusting looks, he couldn't help complaining, it's immoral. Sunian was unhappy when he heard this. Master Lu, who are you talking about immoral? We are a legal couple, and we are still at home, how can you use the words immoral? If you can't speak, then just don't say anything. After saying that, Sunian stood up on tiptoes and kissed Lee Baikin on the face. Since it violates morals and corrupts morals, then we should continue to violate morals and corrupt customs. Sunian is very happy now. I don't know why I am happy, but my reaction is happy. Lee Baikin put his arm around Sunian's waist and said casually, Young Master Lu, since you think this is immoral, you can get out of here and don't disturb my wife and I. Lu Jing. Lee Baikin had already talked to this point. How could Lu Jing stay here? He immediately left angrily. Sunian saw Lu Jing looking so angry, as if he were seeing a screaming chicken. Before she could look back, her body was in the air. This made Sunian subconsciously hug Lee Baikin's neck tightly. Okay, we should go to the company. We have been delayed by Lu Jing for so long. If we delay for a while longer, we may be late. You won't have your salary deducted if you are late. Sunian couldn't help but mutter. Lee Baikin nodded, but I think it's best not to be late. After all, if I am late, the people below will think that I don't abide by the company's rules, and they won't abide by them either. Lee Baikin said this deliberately. He didn't like Sunian's eyes on other men. Even if you are mocking that man, you will see that man is unhappy. Lee Baikin doesn't like it either. But when Sunian heard this, he really felt as if a flock of crows were flying above his head. Am I a fool in this guy's eyes? Do you really think I haven't been a domineering president? Will the people down there learn this? Cut. Originally I had a slight affection for this guy, but now it turns out that I am completely self-indulgent. Lee Baikin, he said something wrong. Is it too late to take it back now? The explosion is over, I will continue to display it tomorrow. You can restore your wallet, and I will display it for a few days. End of this chapter.